Hello and welcome to the latest What Happens Next puzzle. The idea is very simple. I'm going to take you through a game and then at a critical moment I'm going to stop and you have to work out what happens next. Okay, let's go through the game. It's between Malyatin and Bochkarov from the second Pologievsky Memorial Tournament, or perhaps, excuse my Russian pronunciation, it's probably Malyatin against Bochkarov. Anyway, here we go. Malyatin is white. He played d4, e6, so e4 would go into a French, but c4 still a queen's pawn opening, and it looks like it's going to be a queen's gambit. And now black does something slightly, well, I think a little bit dubious. He heads for a Dutch defense and the so-called Stonewall variation, setting up a pawn chain like this. So black is clamping this central e4 square, but of course it does leave this e5 square a bit weakened, and of course the e6 pawn sometimes is weak. This move order is slightly strange because it allows white to go straight for bishop f4, giving him very good control over e5. Now black counters that with bishop d6, but this exchange of bishops generally is positionally favourable for white because it gives him greater control over the dark squares, or at least he can try to get control over the dark squares. Bishop d3. Okay, well here I think I would probably play castles if I were black, but instead black played knight d7, and I think that's slightly inaccurate, and white pounced on this by taking on d5. Of course, normally when white captures like this, you want to be able to play e takes d5, but here then bishop takes f5 wins a pawn. This is a problem. So in this case black has to recapture with the c pawn, and that leaves the c file open, and white is very well placed to try to get some play on the c file quite quickly. So things have gone a little bit wrong for black already, I think. Knight b5, and white really goes for it now. Queen check, and here if white wanted, I think queen d2 is a sensible move. I think in the endgame white would have a positional advantage, but white plays very aggressively with king f1. Now that means that black is unable to castle here because of knight c7, picking up the e-pawn. And of course there's also a threat of knight c7 anyway. So king e7 is, well, more or less forced actually, so both kings are now displaced, and this kind of raises the stakes in the position. Okay, white continued a3 and went for the c file. Now of course the knight could drop back to c3, but instead white went all in and played knight c7, the most aggressive move. Now we have a very sharp position indeed. I don't want to go into too much detail, but you can see the e6 pawn is attacked, so black has to defend this and played knight b8. Now I think his idea is he would like, of course, to play knight c6 to cut off support from the rook, but it's not so simple. b4 happened, the queen came back, and now b5. Now clearly it's going to be rather difficult to get in knight c6. Of course this pawn could be taken, but then knight takes and the knight would rejoin the action, and white is doing very well there. h6 was played, the knight had to come back, but the knight really wants to come back anyway to come in on this square. Bishop d7 and queen b3. And rook c8. And this is the position that I'd like you to consider in some detail. I'm going to offer you two moves. You have to pick the one which you think is best. So the two moves are queen b4 check. That's one of your moves. And the other move is knight to e5. When I finish speaking, you'll see a screen and there'll be two buttons, and you just click on the move that you'd like to play, and that'll bring you through to the next clip where I'll explain what's going on in the position. And you can also click on the links underneath as well, underneath the video. So the best of luck, and I'll see you soon in the next clip.